who's really the power broker on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Between all these sick dance moves, unexpected cocktails, and deeply upsetting Super Soldier Serum secrets, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier's plot is thickening faster than a concrete milkshake. And while many of us are trying to suss out Zemo's schemos and how to make Sam snake juice for ourselves at home, the biggest mystery of the Falcon and Bucky show is who exactly is the mysterious power broker that managed to crack the code on the Super Soldier Serum only to have their blue goose stolen by the Flag Smashers. It's going to be one of the most important questions on the show as we head into the final 3 episodes of the season. Who is this shadowy figure that serves as judge, jury, and executioner in Madripoor? Well, today we're going to look at 4 of the likeliest suspects and determine who exactly the power broker actually is. But in order to do so, we do need to talk about everything that's happened so far on the Falcon and Bucky show. So if you're worried about that kind of thing, or the prospect that we might be right about one of these characters, find the nearest ride on out of here.
You're not going to move your seat up, are you?
No.
Okay, are all the spoiler phobes gone? Great, let's get into it. Let's give some context about who the power broker is and why they're so important in the comics. The power broker both refers to an individual named Curtis Jackson and the business that offered paying customers superhuman strength by trying to recreate the Super Soldier Serum through this incredibly dangerous process that left many patients in dire condition. And as we mentioned in our episode breakdowns, 2 of the power broker's highest profile clients were John Walker and Lamar Hoskins, aka Captain America and Battlestar.
Do you know who I am?
As we learn in the Falcon and Bucky show episode 3, the power broker has apparently made a viable version of the serum as synthesized by the Hydra-turned-CIA scientist Dr. Wilfred Nagel, who took his talents to Madripoor after getting snapped out of existence by Thanos. But unfortunately for the power broker, the Flag Smashers turned Flask Snatchers and took all the remaining copies of this Super Soldier Serum that turned Carly Morgenthau and her compatriots into what Bucky instantly recognized as super soldiers on par with Steve Rogers. But with Nagel's unexpected execution at the hands of Zemo in episode 3, our heroes are back in the dark when it comes to figuring out the power broker's true identity. But with that said, here are the 4 likeliest candidates for who this true mastermind behind these new super soldiers could actually be. Let's start with a familiar face that has a demonstrated and abiding interest in the Super Soldier Serum, General Thunderbolt Ross. Remember 2008's Incredible Hulk? His desperate quest to recreate the serum in that movie turned Bruce Banner into the Hulk and Emil Blonsky into the Abomination, leaving half of Harlem in ruins, and Ross's program shut down for good. Or so we thought. As Secretary of State, Ross tried to get the Avengers to sign the Sokovia Accords and had no qualms about pitting them against each other even when Earth is literally being attacked by Thanos' troops. So clearly Ross understands the utility of superheroes, but only when they're following his orders. And corollary to this is the fact that Ross's name appears in the end credits of the show, associated with something called the Enhanced Humans Act. So the inference here, along with what we know about how the CIA was conducting secret experiments based on Isaiah Bradley's blood samples, is that the government had been working to make super soldiers a thing this entire time. They never stopped trying to recreate Dr. Abraham Erskine's technology, and that was one of the most closely guarded state secrets. General Thunderbolt Ross also got snapped by Thanos, which means that upon his return he probably wasn't Secretary of State anymore. So who else would have the obsessive knowledge of the Super Soldier program, including Nagel's work for the CIA? Who would have those deep military connections and the drive to establish an army of super soldiers that he can control to make him and his allies the dominant power? Who exactly would be able to get back into the government's good graces, potentially as a military contractor, by making super soldiers for the US Army? That's right, General Thunderbolt Ross would. After all, remember Carly's line from episode 2.
We can't let the same arse who were put back in power after the blip win.
Anyway, Michael Walsh has a deep dive into this exact theory with even more evidence to support it over on Nerdist.com, so if you're curious, I'll drop a link to that in the description below. Our next potential power broker is a character we have not yet met in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm talking, of course, about Curtis Jackson, and no, not 50 Cent, his actual alter ego from the comics, Curtis Jackson. There's a strong likelihood the power broker could be a character we have not already met in the MCU. After all, as we've learned from overthinking things during WandaVision with the aerospace engineer and Ralph Boner,
Ralph, my husband, Ralph.
sometimes the answer is that it's just a character that we haven't met yet. Now that said, there is the potential that this shadowy power broker could be working in concert with an organization we do know of, the Ten Rings, the terrorist group controlled by the Mandarin.
And you'll never see me coming.
No, the other Mandarin, the real one that we'll learn more about in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings when it drops on September 3rd, 2021. Anyway, Curtis Jackson, coming soon, question mark?
Hey, it's complicated,
It
right?
is.
It's complicated.
Next on our list of unusual suspects is Sharon Carter, a dark horse candidate for sure, but let us explain. After Civil War, Sharon was declared an enemy of the state for her role in helping Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson track down Bucky Barnes. But unlike Sam and Bucky, she was not granted clemency. And to make matters worse, Steve Rogers is busy boning her Aunt Peggy and apparently has not checked up on her at all, which is pretty messed up.
No, I don't think I will.
Making a new life for herself as a black market art dealer in Madripoor, Sharon has all the makings of a shadowy power broker. With her background in espionage, she's able to track Sam, Zemo, and Bucky from the moment they set foot in Madripoor, and she shows up conveniently in the nick of time right after a sniper's bullet takes out Selby. She also has zero qualms about murdering dozens of assassins in cold blood, so clearly this is a very different Sharon than the one we remember.
Uh-oh. She's kind of awful now.
After all, this episode is titled The Power Broker, and Sharon Carter is the most prominent character to appear in the episode. She's front and center. She worked for the CIA after S.H.I.E.L.D. dissolved in the wake of Captain America the Winter Soldier, so theoretically she could have knowledge about Nagel and his research. But most tellingly is when she bids Sam, Bucky, and Zemo adieu and tells her colleague that they have a potential problem, actually a couple of problems, before driving off. So is her problem that Zemo just iced their #1 ex-Hydra scientist? Is Sharon worried that her erstwhile allies are one step closer to figuring out her other side hustle? Is her big problem that Carly Morgenthau has all of her blue goo somewhere in Latvia? Only time will tell. But speaking with Variety, Sharon Carter actress Emily Van Camp said, well, that's a good question. I mean, the power broker could be anybody. Also, there are several characters that have yet to be seen, so, I mean, I can't say anything. But honestly, folks, for anyone really wondering why Sharon Carter would do this and break bad, remember Emily Van Camp's other big IMDb credit, and that is revenge. And last but not least, we have Baron Zemo, who some folks are speculating that he's this Wilson Fisk kingpin type figure manipulating events from behind the scenes and serving as the shadowy power broker despite being locked up in a German prison. And while I don't buy this particular theory, especially given how vehemently anti-superhero Zemo has been, he was awfully quick to silence Nagel in episode 3, and he broke out of prison like a little too easily. Far likelier, though, is that Zemo wants to get his hands on the remaining Super Soldier Serum so he can form a group of superpowered watchdogs to ensure that those in power never allow another Battle of Sokovia to happen, thereby leading us into a version of the Thunderbolt at a future phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But that, my friends, is a story for another video. Anyway, those are our best guesses for who the power broker could actually be on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We'll get even more answers this Friday when episode 4 drops, and we'll have plenty of other MCU goodness to tide you over on Nerdist.com in the meantime. But first, folks, tell us, what do you think about these theories? Who do you think the power broker actually is, and why? Let us know in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.